pod bay doors, please, Hal.
So now what? What are you gonna do?
Well, I thought that I would go back to the hospital. You know, they're really nice there. I mean, they really seem like they're trying to help me.
So then that's good then, right? You found something.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I have or not.
So, are you gonna still have the operation?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then, what am I supposed to say to you?
Thanks a lot. And, bon voyage.
Yeah, right. See you sometime.
Yeah. I'll see you in my dreams, huh?
Right, I'll write a song. Oh, I don't know, you know? Life's so funny.
You said a mouthful, sweetheart. Well, goodbye, huh?
Bye.
The pod bay doors are open. Thank you very much for joining us once again. I am your host, Doug Heller, film critic and film historian for TalkMovieToMe.com. Here, as always, with my compatriot who's sitting in the back, ready to shoot when I give the word, Jerry Dean Roberts, film critic for ArmchairCinema.com, ArmchairOscars.com, and OverThinkingOscars.wordpress.com. Jerry, how you doing?
Yeah, well, I'm a Christian and my ears aren't garbage cans.
Today we're
This is a foul-mouthed little movie.
Yeah, it is. We are kicking off, belatedly kicking off Pride Month here at the end of June. With
Life got in the way.
Yeah. With Sidney Lumet's glorious 1975 film Dog Day Afternoon.
How have we not talked about this yet?
I don't know.
We've been doing this for almost 5 years. We have not talked about this movie. I am surprised.
We haven't talked about 12 Angry Men either, which is
no.
You know, the only Lumet movie we've done is Network.
Yeah. We'll do a lot more.
Yeah, there are a bunch of films and people that we haven't even touched upon.
Here's the thing about Lumet. Lumet loved film. And you
almost
could
as
tell.
much as he loved New York.
Almost as much as he loved New York. He's one of the few directors I would have loved to have worked with. Mm-hmm. I mean, just, you know, if you were an actor, you'd want to work with him. Mm-hmm. But he had an eye for when a movie wasn't working. Because he made a lot of crap.
Yeah.
And he would tell you it was crap.
Yeah, he wasn't afraid. He knew when he screwed up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, sometimes films just don't work. Yeah. Sometimes you get to the middle of it and it's just not working. But it's kind of too late to go back. Mm-hmm. But this is one of his best.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely one of his best. And I was watching this last night again, and I was just bowled over by it.
I hadn't seen this in 20
by
years.
the way, if you have not seen Dog Day Afternoon, turn this off. Yeah. Because this movie starts with a little idea that escalates, and you learn things along the way.
Snowballs into, the most chaotic, hectic, avoidable situation you can possibly imagine.
Everything that a bank robber does not want to happen
happens. Yeah.
And one thing I noticed last night, I had not noticed this before. I hadn't really taken note of the opening, which I kept thinking if anybody else made this, they would have cut out the opening of this film.
Yeah.
Which is a series of life in New York. Mm-hmm. Things are going on. People are just, the construction workers are out. You get shots of the Calvary Cemetery. You get shots of just different things, around New York. People just going about their lives.
Right, and he sets the tone for the film by doing that, because
Hmm.
he's giving us everyday people, and he does not stop giving us everyday people.
Right. He. This is an ordinary day.
Mhm.
This is another day in New York where something interesting has happened,
Right.
and it blows up into a thing. And this actually happened, by the way.
It is. It's
This is a true story.
based on a true story. Yeah. The crux of it, the reason that I picked it for Pride Month, is Al Pacino's character is bi, and
Mhm.
is robbing the bank to get money for his
His partner's sex
his
change.
partner to get gender reassignment surgery, um, which
But you
wasn't
don't know
called
that
gender reassignment
until
surgery at the
well
time.
after the first
Oh,
hour of the movie.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The way that it unspools, and that's exactly what it does. It unspools. Like, you got a little
Mhm.
thread over here, and then you just push it, and it just kind of unravels all the way down. And I forgot about
Let's
that
talk
third
about the
kid.
beginning. Let's talk about the beginning of the movie because it this feels like a plan that was put together over drinks the night
Lunch.
before,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
or put together over lunch.
Yeah. And then they said, okay, let's
I
go
get
do
the
it.
feeling, I get the strange feeling he doesn't know John Cazale all that well. He's just a guy that was there, and they talked, and they had,
No,
they had
they
a
were
couple of
non
beers. And,
together.
were they non together?
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think they served
Um,
together. They're close.
well, how did he meet Stevie? Did they ever tell you? Did they ever mention how he met Stevie?
His partner,
Yeah,
his I don't know if
the
they're
third guy in the
I
bank
don't know.
robbery.
Oh, that guy. I have no idea. He was probably just somebody. They probably just thought they needed a third person, and they didn't know
Mhm.
who to call in. And he was like, "Yeah, okay, I can do it." And his nerve failed, because he looked a lot younger than them.
Well, and by the way, previous episode, he was in Jaws 2.
Mhm.
This actor, um, he he chickens out very early on,
I mean,
and there's a
they get the
brilliant
door
moment.
locked, and he's like, "Yeah, I gotta
Yeah,
go."
because they get in the bank, and it's closing time, and he chickens out after John Cazale gets things rolling. And I love this exchange when he's letting him out. He's like, Stevie, don't take the car. It's like, well, how am I supposed to get home?
Yeah,
Take the subway.
because how would we get out of here if you take the car?
It's,
Come on,
I
man.
love that just kind of common sense
Yeah.
thinking. You know, it's like, how are we going to get away? And see, this is what I love, the organic nature of this film, because he leaves and he comes back
Yeah.
and he says, "Oh, by the way, there's a girl.
Mm-hmm.
There's a girl hiding under the desk." And I love that stuff.
Who was
The dialogue in this,
who was that? That was
Carol Kane,
Carol Kane. That's what I thought. Yeah,
very young Carol
a
Kane.
very young Carol Kane.
What's interesting is this movie it seems like everything's done with common sense.
Yeah.
It's like, you imagine how this would have been made in the mid '80s. It would have been that Dane Cook.
It would have been really nothing more than
Would have been Mad City.
right. Like, I've watched there's a couple of riff tracks that open in similar situations, movies that they did. One of them was called Martial Law, featuring Steve McQueen's son Chad,
Hmm.
because of course his name is Chad.
Of course, his name's Chad.
And there's a bank robbery, and they're like, "Oh, hey, we want food," and have the person delivering it be naked.
Hmm.
So they get this guy that comes up and they call him martial law because I guess he just kills people. So he just goes in and tear asses and shuts the whole thing down. And there was another movie that was before that, that was made years before that, that opened in the exact same way. I mean, almost
Hmm.
down to the lines. The beats
Yeah.
were all the same. It would have been that. It would have been like a stupid action movie.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have. It wouldn't have the. It wouldn't have the power. Um,
Yeah.
that it
Well,
has. Because,
well, yeah, and I hate it when you have movies that are like some guys are robbing someplace, and it's like this all-star team of rocks, this all-star team of international bank robbers, and
right.
you got the one guy taking out the guards and one guy taking out the cameras, and it's done with all this efficiency and
Mm-hmm.
electronic music and all that. No, most bank robberies take place like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an escalation of shit.
Yeah.
Now, most bank robberies don't escalate this big, but
This got big, but I mean, this is exactly it. It's people who are desperate rob banks.
right,
Because that is literally the last ditch. Like, robbing a bank, or, if you need money more than, just knocking over a 7-Eleven or something,
yeah,
and you're just desperate. And that's what drives people to do this. When you get into those, big heist movies, and we're going to get into this, they're just stealing to steal. And yeah, it's kind of cool to watch, but
that's not how it is.
It's ultimately, I mean, things like Ocean's 11 and stuff like that. It's masturbation. It's, you have fun
Yeah.
while you're doing it, but afterwards you're like, nah, I guess I got to do just
A little
do something
help
else.
from
Yeah.
some old friends.
Yeah. Thank you, Rick. I love that episode.
Son of a bitch, I'm in.
I was watching
hate that shit.
watching Bottle Rocket, and I didn't realize how much Wes Anderson and Owen Wilson had used cliches like that in it.
Yeah.
Because when Owen Wilson comes up to Luke Wilson, he's like, "Hey, we're doing this thing," and he goes, "God damn it, I'm in." And I just busted out laughing because this was like after the second time I'd seen that episode of Rick and Morty.
Mhm.
Anyway.
Well, and the guy who wrote the episode, Dan Harmon, said, "I hate heist movies because they're always the same thing, and they're always bullshit. 90% pulling the crew together and 20% revealing that it already happened.
Yeah.
And it's just it's just the biggest bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, after seeing that episode about 20 times, and then coming to Dog Day Afternoon, I'm like, okay, this is a cold water treatment.
Yeah.
Because all they want to do, they got three guys, one of whom chickens out, the other of whom freezes up, and everything that just could go wrong goes wrong, up to and including, and I almost felt bad for these guys when they get into the vault and they realize there's $1,100 in the bank.
Yeah,
because the Brinks truck has already come to pick it up.
Yeah, they thought that they were getting a delivery, or that but they scheduled their robbery on the day that they got the money picked up in the armored car.
Mhm.
And all of this was for $1,100, which isn't even close to half of what gender reassignment surgery cost in 1975.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it was astronomical at the time.
What's interesting to me also is they didn't tell him that.
Right.
The lady waits until she gets in the vault to tell him that. It's like they get in the vault and she opens the drawer, and I
Well, I know he probably. I mean, if she said there's no money in there, they already came and picked it up. Only an idiot would go, "Oh, okay. I guess we better go then. Because I could say that. It might not be true, but I could say it. I'd have to go verify that, is what I'm saying. I wouldn't just take,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, I'm robbing this place, and they say, oh, but we don't have what you're looking for. It's like, yeah, I'm going to have to find that out for myself. They knew
Well,
he,
then
they
there's
knew he
tipping.
wouldn't believe them.
The tipping point is the insurance guy. Because they're trying to burn the register.
Mm-hmm.
And it tips off the insurance guy across the street.
Now, why are they burning the register?
I think it's because they don't want them to know how much money they took. Because they took money out of the drawers.
Mm-hmm. And Pachino's character used to work in a bank.
Right. And so they're taking money. And again, common sense. I love the fact that he knows that if they take all of the money out of the drawer, it'll trip the alarm.
Right. And he's like, no, just do it like this. Like he knows all the tricks. It's really, don't
Right.
give me money out of this jar, out of this drawer that's marked,
Mhm. And he can't. I was thinking about this. It's like, okay, this would not work today.
No.
How in the world would anybody rob a bank today?
Well, today you would probably need a whole crew because you would actually have to cut the security line, and most of the vaults are on time releases now, and so you'd have to go when you knew it was open. Some banks, most banks now, I think the vaults only are programmed to open at certain times. So even if they wanted to, if it was a time where it wasn't going to open, it's not going to open. There's no code.
Yeah.
There's no nothing that the manager has to open it up if
And the
it's not
sign says
time.
outside on the door.
Yeah. We can't access the
Manager
vault.
cannot open the vault. But they seem to be doing fine until they have to leave, and then the cops show up. And it just snowballs into a media event.
You know what? And every time I watch this, and I haven't seen this as many times as I probably should have, but I'm always amazed at the way Sonny can immediately see his position and work from a bargaining angle immediately.
Mhm.
He sees them out there, he's like, I can get stuff.
Yeah.
I just want us to get out of here. I don't want anybody to get hurt. I love that the hostages actually kind of like them. Or at least him. They're not afraid of him.
And you've got one bank teller who I think she's their manager.
She's the supervisor.
She's the one bank teller who's very assertive.
Sylvia.
Yeah, she's very assertive, and she kind of doesn't back down.
No.
When they start robbing the bank. It's like, you didn't come in here with a plan, did you? You're doing everything on a whim.
She was really pecking him down.
Yeah.
I was kind of impressed by her attitude. I also really love when he takes her.
I was also kind of irritated by her because, let me put it this way: this whole movie makes me tense.
Oh, it's a very, very
because
anxious, anxiety-inducing film.
Right. And just every single thing that can get in their way gets in their way.
Mm-hmm.
And it all and sometimes sometimes several things happen at the same time. And it all just kind of gets in their way. And I'm frustrated by it because I'm like, I kind of, in the back of my mind, want these guys to get away with this. Yeah. But there's no way that they can ever get away with this.
No. It's just such a sad situation. And the fact that they were very adamant in the fact that they didn't want anybody to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
When
There's a reason they didn't shoot him.
Right, right. And when the security guard was having was he having a heart attack?
It's an asthma
An
attack.
asthma attack. And he's like, "Well, I don't want him to die. Let's get him out of here. Let's get him to a hospital. Let's, tell them that he's sick and we didn't do anything to him." And when she comes
That
out,
poor guy. That poor guy, the look on his face is just, I don't know if that was him or good direction or what, but the panicked look on his face, he definitely looks like 2 days from retirement.
Yeah, yeah. And when she comes with him, she's about to go back, and they're like, "You come out too." And she goes, "They're my girls. I'm not leaving them." And she just turns around
Yeah,
and
I'm not
walks
leaving
back
behind.
in. I loved that.
Yeah.
It's just like, at that point, they had kind of bonded with
Right.
with the hostages, so it was kind of like they knew they weren't going to get hurt unless the police started opening fire. So, so she just wanted to be there to protect. But I loved that about her.
Right.
She didn't immediately run away. She didn't,
But at the beginning of it, you're thinking, lady, shut up and let him do what he's going to do, and then he'll leave. But, then later on, every character in this film reveals some kind of dimension.
Mm-hmm.
That is what makes it so brilliant. It's, at its bare bones, if you break it down just to a 1 or 2 sentence description, it's just a couple of guys robbing a bank, and it doesn't go right. But once all the character stuff starts, and you realize who Sonny is and why he's doing this, and you realize the Charles Durning character has all of these, he's not just the loudmouth, asshole cop.
And isn't this his best performance? Oh my God.
It's wonderful.
Charles Durning was always good in what he did, but holy crap, this is next level stuff for him. Like, I can't remember him being that good in anything else I've ever seen him in. And he's always been a good actor.
And again, I always say, and I've said since the beginning of this show, movies are a window on the times in which they were made. And this definitely is.
Yeah.
Because this is the mid-70s. There's a massive distrust of authority. People generally don't like cops. The mass population doesn't. So when you see how the cops are, and in particular, this leads to the most famous element of this film, is that this takes place a year after the police standoff at Attica.
Yeah.
And so the cops don't look good right now. Cops don't look good right now.
When you're watching this and you see Charles Durning,
yeah,
if you're unfamiliar,
you think, here we go,
Well, you kind of like, what is this ridiculous guy doing here? What's Doc Hopper doing?
Right.
As a police chief, as a police captain, or Pappy O'Daniel, get that old son bitch. The goofy characters that he played really distracted.
Even Family Guy.
Yeah, it really distracted how good he can be.
How good Charles Durning was, yeah. He could leaven a movie like The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Yes, that's true. Yes, he's the best part of that movie.
That takes talent.
That does. That takes a lot of talent to be.
He could leaven that dead remake of To Be or Not to Be.
Yes. Oh, I hated that movie.
And got an Oscar nomination for both.
And never won. Oh no, he
didn't
did
win.
win. He won an Oscar for Best Original Screenplay. He got a writing Oscar.
Or
Oh no, I'm
what?
sorry. That's Dog Day Afternoon. I'm sorry. I was in the wrong section. I thought I was in Charles
Okay.
Durden's. I was just in the movie. Yeah, he never won, and that's sad. Because he was one of the great supporters. He was one of the great supporting actors. He
He got to the party, he just never got the prize.
Right. He was kind of the like the Ralph Bellamy or the Frank Nelson of modern day character acting. Like he was just the guy that was in everything and did great, and people would go,
He's
"Oh yeah,
kind
that
of like
guy."
he's kind of like John Goodman. He's really good in everything, and then but he never quite. Again, he gets to the party, but never quite gets
Right.
the prize. But he's really good in this because the first time you see him is in a long shot. This movie takes place in two locations: the bank and then the barbershop across the street. And the first time you see Durning, you're thinking, "Oh shit, here we go. Here's the asshole cop. There's going to be spouting a lot of regulations and rules and by the book, and I run this operation and all this kind of stuff." And he's not.
No, not even almost.
He's trying to diffuse this the best way he knows how.
Right.
I was surprised when he starts pushing cops away.
And getting them to put their guns down and walking up to somebody unarmed.
Right. And going over and talking to him.
This was
and trying to diffuse this
man,
in a way that is.
I'm sorry. This man was doing everything that the police don't do. He was actually being compassionate. He was hearing him out. He was being cooperative without capitulating. It's all the things that are necessary for safety in those situations. If you look at every single death caused by a police officer, 80% of them could have ended could have gone in this way and ended without death.
Well, and you got those when he's standing outside and he's talking to him, and those guys are advancing
with their guns out, and they're like,
those guys are just
nope.
Yeah, and they're advancing and they're moving forward, and it's just like, this is not a terrorist plot.
Right.
This is just a guy who did the wrong thing.
And then
talk to him, negotiate it down, and
when the SWAT team tries to
the SWAT team comes.
He's like, "I have no control over them. I didn't know they were there." And when she shoots the gun at the vents, they back off. He's like, "I didn't order that."
Listen, when you got when it gets to the point that they're actually, the camera is actually tracking 14 guys on the sniper positions, cops in a shoehorn shaped position all around.
It looks like
and a helicopter.
It looks like at the end of the Blues Brothers, when they're on the ground and all of the cops in Chicago, in the entire Calumet County, is like right on top of them, and there's like this fisheye lens and it's bowing around them. Like, that's what it looks like.
Weren't you thinking? Weren't you sitting there thinking, okay, this is New York, and every cop is there. This must be a slow day.
Either that, or it is the greatest day for every other criminal in the city.
Very little happens on this block, apparently, because everybody is there.
The whole precinct is there.
The whole precinct the whole population is there.
Well, yeah, all the
Because
people from the area that live there are down there too, and I love the fickleness of a crowd when I'm not trying to perform to it. Uh,
yeah,
because they're in almost total support of him at the beginning until they learn that he's had relations with a man, and then they
right.
turn on him, and then the LGBTQ plus community
Mhm.
comes in support,
Right.
which is not what he wants.
But I guess I'm a person of common sense because I'm sitting there thinking to myself, if there's a bank robbery
Mhm.
and there are 14 guys in sniper positions and there are cops with guns out, and there are 30 cops with guns out, yeah, I want to go down there and be a part of that.
Well, as
You know,
long as you're
it
behind the cops, I mean.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's still guns. It doesn't
But
matter if the blue
they're
uniform doesn't
pointing
mean
away
anything.
from you, though. That's my point. They're pointing away from you. But still,
That's
I would just kind of hang my head out the window, you know.
it's kind of like when that kid got killed in Missouri a couple of years ago, and there were all the riots going on, and you saw people down at the riots, with their children.
Hmm.
We see a woman carrying a baby around. I'm like, okay, this is probably not the best place to be right now, honey. Just, I never could figure that out. It's like, yeah, let's take the kids down to the riot.
Well,
Just
sometimes things start as peaceful protests and either are goaded into becoming violent by the police or by non-affiliated agitators that work their way into the ranks,
Mhm.
or things can just go sour. Um,
Right,
like all the
like it does here.
all the stuff in like the summer of 2020. None of
Mhm.
that was Antifa. None of those. I saw too many videos of people who
Mhm.
were on the streets during the protests, um, like in the day, walking down the street, taking pictures of, taking video of just bricks stacked up on the
Mhm.
sidewalk where there's
Yeah.
no construction.
Mhm. Yep.
So how much of that was planned? Probably
Yeah.
most of it. Just to say, oh, well, see, the black people are rioting and they can't be trusted, so blah, blah, blah. No, Whitey did that. Anyway, um,
I was again. I'm amazed by how this builds because the only thing you know when it starts is that these three guys are going to rob a bank.
right.
That's the only thing you know. I hate movies that tell you everything that's going to happen and everything you need to know about the characters in the first 8 minutes. I hate that.
Well, yeah, because then what's the point of watching the rest of it?
Right. And the great thing about this is you really don't know how it's going to
You
end.
have no idea minute to minute. I even knew how it all ended, and I still had vivid images of, the end in the van and everything like that. But I still get
Mhm.
thrown by what happens.
When they kill John Cizal,
Oh,
the first time I saw this, that was a shock.
I was floored when that happened. When I saw it the first time, I was not expecting
That
that
was
at
a
all.
shock.
And the
I
one
wasn't
how
either.
the FBI guy was like, we'll take some, we'll take care of Sal.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it.
they
We'll
did.
take care of Sal. They they told, and I think he figured that out
Yeah,
because on his face it's like, so they're not going to shoot me.
yeah.
Do I continue to put Sal in harm's way, knowing
Mhm.
that they are specifically targeting him and not me?
Right.
But he continues to go along with it, thinking he can outsmart them.
Mhm.
And I think Sonny's biggest problem is that he's smarter than he thinks he is, but he's nowhere near as smart as he needs to be
Right.
for this situation.
He's not prepared for
Right.
how big this
Right.
gets.
He's charismatic and clearly a showman because he can whip that crowd into a fury really quickly and
Mhm.
get people on his side, so that whole thing with telling them to back off and yelling Attica, um,
Mhm.
it was he was just getting sympathy on his side and basically preventing the police from just shooting him because that would be terrible PR for them because people were starting to like the guy.
Yeah.
You know?
Did they ever mention how the guy got through the barriers? The brother
Or the boyfriend?
Was the boyfriend. Did they ever mention how he got through the barriers? Because I have a feeling somebody let him
Oh,
through,
I'm sure.
just to kind of whip things up a little bit.
Hey, they pulled the gates aside for the insurrectionists. Why wouldn't they step aside for a Latin
the brother
American
or the boyfriend.
to go do their job for them? Hopefully, you know, like I think they
Right.
were just hoping he would incapacitate him so they could move on Sal and be done with it. And then they could get out clean because they wouldn't have started anything.
Right. Right. It's amazing what happens after that because Jordan comes up to him and he's looking at the wound on his head because the guy beats the crap out of Sonny, and he's looking at the wound on his head and you're expecting something else to happen. No, he's looking at the wound on his head. He's not
genuinely
thinking.
concerned for the man's safety.
Right. He's not using this to talk him out of anything.
Right.
And he's trying to not harden himself up because if he does that, then the situation, there's distance between the two of them.
Right.
And, I want to believe that after this was all over, the Charles Durning character went into hostage negotiation because he's very good at this.
Oh, I hope he did.
Yeah, he's very, very good at this.
And it only starts to
But you
go south when he gets taken off.
Yeah.
When the FBI pushes
yeah,
him off.
exactly.
When the FBI takes over.
Of course they pushed him off.
yeah. I mean, it's the FBI in a 70s movie. I mean,
right.
you can
the FBI in
you can
anything.
get away from some tropes, but not all of them.
Not all of them.
But
let's talk about the boyfriend,
oof, yeah. Well,
Leon.
now see, Leon. So here's the thing with Leon for me. I don't know how to assign pronouns because he's playing trans.
He's a man pre-op transsexual.
Right. So he's technically, I mean, so he's a trans woman. She is a trans
Right,
woman.
but I would say it's probably he because at this point it isn't quite.
Well, I mean, but if somebody just comes out and says, "Oh, hey, I'm trans," then that's, I mean, to me, that's what they are. I mean, that's what they've always been, and that's kind of how I think they should be referred to. It shouldn't be dependent upon the surgery, to me.
Well,
Not everybody can get the surgery.
necessarily a movie that's 45 years old, he's going to feel a little dated.
Oh yeah, no, I mean,
somewhat in its ideals.
I'm just talking me personally while we're talking about this. I don't know how to refer to Leon as a pronoun. So that was just my conundrum. They, of course, refer to Leon as he and the boyfriend and all of that because this was long before any kind of trans acceptance.
This was still during a time when gays, lesbians could have a party and place be raided,
Yeah, just because they
and
were there.
you know, just because they were there. You could get arrested. You could get a teacher could be fired.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could be fired from your job.
Mm-hmm.
Watch that All in the Family episode where they find out that Eve's late cousin was a lesbian,
Mm-hmm.
and Archie threatens to blab. It can just easily, you know, any hint that you might be
Mm-hmm.
gay, bisexual, what have you, anything could just snowball into your life just going down the toilet.
Right.
In certain circumstances, people couldn't be out. Some people were.
In most circumstances, people didn't feel that they were safe to be themselves.
Right. Even after Stonewall, you know, even after the revolution, even after the gay rights
But
movement
it
started.
still wasn't safe.
Right.
It
Right.
still isn't safe.
Because you can be murdered.
Yeah. Well, hell,
Yeah.
they're still dragging gay people around on the back of trucks in Texas. That was
Mhm.
barely 10 years ago, wasn't it? And that
Yeah.
kid almost
Yeah.
died in Texas from they tied him to a rope and tied it to the truck and just drove it down the road. Kid almost died. Why? Because
Yeah.
he likes other boys. Who cares?
Because yeah.
Who cares? I've always
They're not going to come. He's not going to come after you.
my
You know.
my favorite way of describing my I don't even want to say acceptance. It's just people are people. The best way to articulate it, I think, was Jack Nicholson in As Good as It Gets. Listen, I don't care where you shove your show. Just don't shove it on me. And or something like I know he said I don't care where you shove your show. This doesn't matter to me. I'm concerned with other things. That little part is in your head. I'm not mean to you because you're gay. I'm mean to you because I hate people.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
how I've always kind of been, long before even that. It's just like, you know, people are who they are, and
Mhm.
who they date or are attractive to doesn't change their personality. It doesn't change who they are at all in
It doesn't.
in
No,
any
it doesn't.
kind of anything. It's just we as a society have decided to treat people who are a little different, well, differently. Instead of,
Well, let's talk about Chris Sarandon's performance,
oh
because
man,
he is playing a gay man, and when he is sitting in the barbershop,
mm-hmm.
surrounded by all of these cops,
Uh,
and he's talking to Charles Durning, and you're talking on the phone with Al Pacino,
Mhm.
there is, I've never seen an actor so convincingly tense like this.
I love, and he's
Because
got that like kind of flimsy robe on, and
Yeah.
and
he's holding it closed, yeah.
up at the neck, like he's going to expose himself if he lets it go, and
It's like these cops could pull out a gun and shoot him, and then the news would reveal that they shot a gay man, and the general public would not even blink.
who's to say it would even be in the news?
Because I'm just saying, it's to that point at this juncture in the country in which his life means nothing
Right.
to the general populace,
Oh, I didn't.
which is shown in the reaction from the crowd to Al Pacino,
Yeah.
is that when they get down to that point, and he's sitting there and he's surrounded by 30 cops, and this guy probably since he was a teenager, has been harassed and hassled by cops.
Yeah.
Persistently,
Mm-hmm.
consistently, always. So he's sitting there and he's holding that robe closed and he's just nervous.
Mm-hmm.
You could feel it. This is why he got an Oscar nomination for this.
And I didn't know that he was the reason Susan got her last name. I was going to say, oh, is he brothers
Yes.
with her and Chris? Is he brothers
No.
with? Yeah, but no, he's or who's Susan Sarandon? Susan Sarandon has a brother that's an actor too.
Right.
But yeah, I was like, oh, but no, he was her first husband.
Right. And
yeah, he pours so much into that performance.
into a performance, into a role that probably in a lesser movie wouldn't have been anything.
Wouldn't have been much of anything, and would not have been treated as respectfully as it is in this movie.
And he really is the key character in this.
Because he's the
Because
linchpin
he's
to the whole
the reason
thing.
this whole thing has happened. Yeah, he's the reason. He's the linchpin of the whole thing.
Now, I chose this movie for this, not really because Al Pacino's character Sonny is bi or gay or however he wants to identify. This is years before identifying as anything was a thing. But it's the non-judgmental approach that the film takes.
Yes.
That it does not make that the crime. It just makes it a reason.
Right.
To show that he's
And
desperate and he cares deeply for Leon and wants to make him happy, or her, and there's just a sensitivity to that is not making him the bad guy because he's LGBTQIA.
Right. And there's a larger statement about just how desperate gay men were at the time.
Right.
How desperate they could become. Because when you push down and you demonize a group of people and you mythologize a group of people, desperate times call for desperate measures. When you push them against the wall and they have very few options, they take the only option that they have.
Right.
And I think that's what Sonny did. He thought this would be a little, just robbing a neighborhood bank.
In and out real quick.
Worked in a bank.
Get the money, go get Leon's gender reassignment surgery and go about their business.
Because if it hadn't been for the insurance guy, they would have gotten away with it. They would have gone out the back door and on they go. And but one thing happens, one thing leads to another. It's just
Yeah.
And it becomes this weird comedy of errors. It's just it's so great, but it's also so tragic because you know they're not going to get away with this.
Well, yeah, I know, and only the FBI would let someone would do all this stuff, get them food, actually bring the plane onto a tarmac, bring the bus to them, knowing full well they're not letting him get on and fly away.
Right. To Wyoming.
Only the FBI. Yeah. What country do you want to go to? Wyoming. Wyoming isn't a country, it's a state. And I love how Sonny doesn't laugh at Sal for that. He's taken aback.
Yeah.
But only because he's like, oh, he really doesn't know this. Okay, yeah.
He really doesn't know this.
So he doesn't make fun of him. Nobody in this movie is ridiculed for who or what they are.
This is one of the most human films I've ever seen, and it's about a bank robbery.
Yeah, and that's what draws me to it, and that's what makes me feel like it's a great Pride Month movie.
This movie does the legwork.
Yeah,
it does the legwork on every character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's
they don't get movies like this.
No, even his biologically female wife,
Mm-hmm.
and the kids. She's like, I can't go down there.
Yeah.
You know, I'd have to get a sitter. I'd have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I can't just go down there.
Common sense thinking.
Yeah, like
yeah. In a lesser movie, in a movie made 10 years later, you would have had her go down there. No mention of the kids. No mention of who they're with.
She just would have
been
there,
wouldn't care.
And he would have been surprised, like, oh, she cared enough to come down here. Why don't you just give in? They're not going to hurt you. If you just give up now, you'll just go to prison for a few years. You know, that scene never happens.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I love it when Charles Darning is telling him, it's like, 5 years you'll be out in one. I'm like, no. No,
this is
not how this works.
This is armed robbery. This isn't a burglary. Yeah. This isn't. I mean,
that has escalated into a hostage situation.
There's obviously going to be points for the fact that nobody got injured by them.
Right.
The only things that happened were an asthma attack and a diabetic crash.
Right.
And neither one of them was brought on. I mean, the stress of the situation probably brought on the asthma attack, but why he didn't have his inhaler, I don't know. But anyway.
It might have been in his car.
Yeah, or anywhere else.
Or he just forgot it.
So, yeah, it's everybody is human. Everybody, even down to Sonny's mother, who has like one or two lines, like, if he would have told me he needed money, I would have given him money.
Right.
She is fully realized in that line. She is more well defined than half of the characters we see in other movies that are there from the beginning to the end of the movie.
In just a couple of lines. Again, the movie does the legwork, and it doesn't have to be, long scenes of dialogue and monologues. No, just a couple of moments, just a couple of scenes, just a couple of little things. Right. Just saying something, just just a little bit, a little tiny bit of human dimension, a little bit of shading, and every character is like that. I was fascinated because now I said earlier, the movie is, again, it's 45 years old, so it is necessary. It is a little dated.
A little bit, yeah.
It's as progressive as it is toward the Leon character. It is a little bit dated. Because when you have a character like this in movies, and this was true at the same time on the TV show Soap, you have a gay character, so they're obviously going to have a sex change. That has to be a part of it. They're not just gay; they're going in for gender reassignment surgery.
All just profound misunderstanding of what homosexuality is, and I mean, just because you're
obviously if you're sleeping with men, then you're obviously wanting to be a woman,
right? But I mean, it takes two, and not every gay person is a bottom, like. I don't like how could just somebody who's a top just. They don't want to be a woman. The people who are bottoms don't necessarily want to be a woman just because they enjoy anal intercourse. Who cares? Like,
This was just kind of. I'm not saying it damages the film. I'm just saying it was a trope.
Oh yeah.
At the time.
Oh yeah. So, Yeah, and I'm glad that those tropes aren't anywhere near this movie. Um, this is a stunning script. Uh, Frank Pearson wrote it.
Yeah.
He was also
Well, well, I'm thinking about um, how they are portrayed because you have to step outside this film to really understand just exactly how human it is toward Sonny
hmm
and Leon.
hmm
Because a film like something made in proximity to this was like Freebie and the Bean, when the villain of the film is a murderous transvestite.
hmm
And the movie has to end with the macho hero blowing 9 million holes in the guy, in a subway
right.
bathroom.
Ooh, that's another
That was the
distinction.
general perception.
That's another distinction. Um, Transvestite versus transsexual, and how they
Right.
have always been conflated as the same thing, but a man dressing in woman's clothing and or
Must be a
one
psychotic.
person dressing in the traditional clothing of the opposite sex, because
Mhm.
transvestitism is not just a male thing.
Right.
It does not mean then that they want gender reassignment surgery. It just means that dressing like that fills some sort of psychological need for them. And that's all there is to it.
Right.
It's just it's who they are. It's what, you know, and uh, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they want to have gender reassignment surgery. Uh, just means that
And
they
it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to walk up to the latest, to the nearest butch male and start hitting on them. And
right.
every time they meet,
In fact,
another guy, they're going to start hitting on them. It's
many transvestites
that
are not gay.
right.
Many transvestites are straight men who
Mm-hmm.
just have that need for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kinks and fetishes and things like transvestitism. Transsexuality is not uh, uh, a kink or something like transvestitism is.
Right.
Transvestitism is akin to needing to, I don't know, feel spiked heels in your mouth, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of the things that from Deconstructing Harry, because those are
Mm-hmm.
kinks. Those are,
Yeah.
needing to be tied up with stockings, or what, all those things that he's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff is influenced by
I'm into leather.
right, exactly. That
Annie Hall.
that is a kink.
Mm-hmm.
Transsexuality is not. It's a
No.
state of being. It's a state of gender identity. So it's not, wanting to be a leather daddy and wanting to dress up in women's
Mm-hmm.
clothes are ostensibly the same situation. If I mean, different causes would lead a person to that, but wanting to get into leather assless chaps and a harness is
Yeah.
the same as
Mm-hmm.
putting on traditionally the other gender's clothes.
You obviously must have a sex swing in your basement or something.
Right, and it's not the same. It's not the same thing.
No, it's not.
It's not. I mean, you know, fetishes are, I'll say, enjoyed. The same fetish can be enjoyed by LGBTQ plus as a straight person.
Mm-hmm.
The same kinks go across that because it's a sexual kink.
Well, and
Whoever you
I
end up
never
doing it with.
understood. I never understood, people who outlaw, anti-sodomy laws
Well, that
and
just
things like that. Because I'm thinking, wait a minute, Straight people do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
straight married couples do
yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
the thing is, I want to say this, and I forgive me if I'm going to sound naive, but I'm very glad to live at a time when those buckets are shrinking. The buckets that we put people into, as far as transsexual, transvestite, bisexual, the perception of all of those buckets are shrinking.
Right. In 40 or 50 years, when we are old people,
Mhm.
I don't think a lot of that will be even a thing.
In 40 or 50 years, I'll be in my 90s.
Yes, and I'll be in my 80s. That's what I'm saying. By the time we are old and dying off,
Yeah.
the younger millennials and Gen Zers, when they become the people in power, when they become the adults in the room, and we are shuffling off our mortal coil and becoming, you know, transitioning out of those positions, I don't think most of this will even be a thing.
Right.
Like,
the stigma will always continue. The stigma will always hang around.
I don't know though, because these kids are profoundly accepting on most levels.
They are.
So by a certain point, you could just say, you know, oh, they're one of my exes. And it could be a man or a woman, a trans person. It won't be a thing. It's like that. I dated that person. I'm not this label. I just.
Well, I don't know.
I think that's
I
how
don't know.
things will eventually go.
You are 10 years behind me, so I don't know your experience. But I grew up. I was born in '71. I grew up more or less in the '70s and '80s, so this was seen as, well, like a bank robber.
Well, yeah. I mean,
you know, who would do something like this? You have to be sick in the head. You have to be abused. You have to have had some kind of misaligned something happen in your life to make you want to do this.
And none of that's
make
true.
you want to, and none of that is true.
It's biological.
It's and that whole macho thing of it's like, have you ever had a homosexual tendency? Hell no. You know, that kind of thing.
Right, but name a person who, you know, you see all those things. It's like, well, they'll usually say in those things, it's like, well, as long as camp doesn't count, no,
right?
Or, you know, as long as this doesn't count.
Well, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it as long as they just don't say anything, don't talk about it at all.
Right. You know what? I'm the same way with Christians. Don't put it in my face, and I'm not going to have a problem with it.
You know what? I'm okay with it as long as I don't know. It's like, okay, so you want people to live in the closet,
basically, yes.
You know?
For your comfort, not for theirs.
For your comfort.
I love how everybody
so
is just, oh, but me. It's like, well, what about them? They're people too, and they deserve the same respect that you want everybody to give straight people. Like, why just because it doesn't make sense.
We're actually going to talk
at all.
We're actually going to talk about really get into this next week.
As long as I can find the non-Otto Preminger movies.
The three films that we're talking about. Now we did this. We started this last year.
This is something that you really like to delve into, because I'm not as well versed in older gay-themed films.
It's hard to find.
They are.
Because well, I wanted to start in the 40s, but I was like, okay, I really couldn't find anything solid. Anything that I found in the 40s, because what we do is every year we take 3 films from a decade that have an LGBT slant or discuss the issues, and we talk about it. Now, last year we did one from the 50s, which is a really good show.
It was.
This year, but I tried to find one from the 40s. I tried to go back even further into the 30s, and I couldn't find anything. You had to pick out crumbs.
Well, yeah, I mean,
in order to find anything.
The first real film that dealt with LGBTQ plus people in a non-pejorative way was probably Madchen in Uniform in like 31.
Yeah.
But there's
Right.
so very few and far between back then because it was such a taboo. People just didn't want to admit that it was happening, despite the fact that it had been happening since the dawn of time.
Well, and it was until Hitler. There were parts of Germany where it was well accepted, and
France and Italy and Greece and most of Europe didn't give a shit.
There's a film that we're going to talk about. The first film we're going to talk about next week is The Children's Hour,
which I've not.
Which is based on a play by Lillian Hellman, wow. Watch a comedy first. Because it's based on a play by Lillian Hellman.
Which
about,
right there and then it's going to be intense.
I think it's based on might be based on a true story, but she wrote the play in the 20s. And it's about, it takes place at a girls' boarding school, and there are these 2 teachers. And one of the students, who is a discipline case, makes an accusation that the 2 women are lovers. And it turns out that one of them is gay. And it snowballs into a scandal. And it was made in the 1930s as a film called These Three.
Okay.
But the studio did a very good job, a very, very thorough job of scrubbing all of the lesbian angle out of the story so that it became a relationship. It became a 3-way relationship, or the headmaster of the school was having a relationship with the 2 women. The headmaster was a man. And so that was the scandal. And they scrubbed all of it from that film. And you can just barely even tell. This is a remake of that.
Okay.
Which is much more honest. And it stars Audrey Hepburn and Shirley MacLaine.
Wow.
And it's very interesting that stars of that caliber would be in a film like this. And it's something amazing. It really is. And I have juxtaposed it with a British drama called Killing of Sister George, which is a much more, which shows how the British, as we did last year with Victim, were much more upfront about it.
Right.
And then the last film is Advising Consent, which Otto Preminger.
Which I've seen, not from beginning to end, but I've seen a healthy chunk in the middle. It's
devastating. It's not generally a happy journey, but
well, most Otto Preminger movies aren't, because being around Otto Preminger was not a fun time, specifically for women. But yeah, he was a.
It's a devastating film.
Yeah.
All 3 films from me are history lessons because they show you how sexual orientation, how the LGBTQ were treated psychologically. And I can't remember the second one, but the two films, Advising Consent and Children's Hour, it leads to tragedy. And which was commonplace in the 1960s.
Gays were like gangsters. They had to either be rehabilitated or killed by the end of the movie.
Right. And if you ever see the documentary, The Celluloid Closet, they show you a montage of all of these people being killed.
That's got to be an uplifting few moments.
My favorite is it's actually kind of funny. My favorite is Sandy Dennis in a movie called Foxes, who was killed by a falling tree trunk. No Freudianism there, but yeah, we do this. I got this idea to do it last year, and it was a really, really good show, but it was so hard to find films from the 50s. Yeah, it'll be much easier to find films from the 70s next year, but
your choices are about to open up.
My choices are about to open up in the next few years.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all I got.
That's all I really have for this. It's a magnificent film on 30 different levels, and I'm really glad we got a chance to talk about it. I don't know what my second choice for the month is, or if we're even going to have time to get through all of our choices.
We'll figure it out.
But yeah, that's what's coming up in the next episode. You can listen to all of our stuff at the podbaydoorspodcast.wordpress.com. You can also listen to us on iTunes and YouTube. Hit that like, subscribe, notifications, follow it, whatever you need to do. On Twitter, we're at pod_bay. Same handle at Patreon, where we will hopefully be getting up for June another fire sale review. It might end up being July's, but right now we're
running a little late.
We have Star Trek: The Slow Motion Picture up there now.
That was a fun episode.
So check that out. We would greatly appreciate anything you can pitch towards us. That about wraps it up here for us. We thank you very much for listening, and the pod bay doors are now closed.
The mission has been completed.
Tweeter and the Monkey Man were hard for cash. They stayed up all night selling cocaine and hash. An undercover cop who had a sister named Jan. For reasons unexplained, she loved the Monkey Man. Tweeter was a Boy Scout before she went to Vietnam, and found out the hard way nobody gives a damn. They knew that they'd find freedom just across the Jersey line, so they hopped into a stolen car, took Highway 99, and the walls came down all the way to hell. Never saw them when they're standing, never saw them when they fell. The undercover cop never liked the Monkey Man. Even back in childhood he wanted to see him in the can. Jan got married at 14 to a racketeer named to a tree near the souvenir stand by the old abandoned factory. Next day the undercover cop was a hot in pursuit. He was taking the whole thing personal, he didn't care about the loot. Janet told him many times it was you to me who taught. In Jersey anything's legal as long as you don't get caught. And the walls came down all the way to hell. Never saw them when they're standing, never saw them when they fell. Someplace by Rahway Prison, they ran out of gas. The undercover cop had cornered him and said, "Oh, you didn't think that this could last." Jan jumped up out of bed, said, "There's someplace I gotta go." She took a gun out of the drawer, said, "It's best that you don't know." The undercover cop was found